This is XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. So lately I have been using XCOM 2 as sort of my go-to game when something else is going on. Like, for instance, since, I started working from home, it's become much easier for me during long, boring meetings that I don't actually have to participate in to divert my attention a little bit. And play some XCOM while other stuff is going on. So that's been my habit for a while, to the point where I'm actually at the end of a very prosperous and fruitful playthrough of XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. And so I actually stopped a couple of weeks ago and switched to playing Gears Tactics during those sort of moments where I need a distraction, because I had come right to the end of War of the Chosen, and I kind of wanted to stream the ending. But unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of time on my hands lately. I've been doing a lot of, if you watch my stream regularly, you'll see that most of my streams end with, oh no, my lunch break is over and I've got a meeting coming up. I have to quit. And so because I'm anticipating that all the time, I didn't want to jump into this, because this might take a little bit. So, to fill you in, if you have not played XCOM 2, War of the Chosen, so the original XCOM 2 ended about this way. It's got the same ending, where basically, you've been building this network and building up your technology to try to take down the totalitarian government of Earth that was created by the aliens. So this is the first stage of that, where we're trying to take down their propaganda machine by doing this mission on the top of these buildings. So War of the Chosen was an expansion pack that added a bunch more content and a bunch more sort of strategic things to think about during the main campaign. It ends about the same way, but along the way you have a lot more interesting different types of missions and enemies to face, and you've got a new type of character, a new set of classes of characters. And so these are those three new classes. I've decided, this first mission in the sort of two-stage ending of XCOM 2 only involves three characters. And so I decided to bring the three characters that I had recruited here. This is Pratal Mox. This is Silvio Rizzo, also goes by Scorch. And this is Elena Dragonova, who goes by Outrider. And so it's interesting because XCOM 2 is mostly about, nearly all the characters are procedurally generated. Right, and so it's like your unique set of characters that you're taking through the process, except for these three. These three are the default characters that you recruit from these three different factions, and it's possible to get a second character in each of these classes if you really invest in it, but mostly it's not. And so weirdly, these three characters end up being sort of the three non-procedurally generated characters that you typically have in a game of War of the Chosen. Hey there, Ranithcord. Thanks for joining the chat. So we've been dropped here on the top of this roof, and I am going to run this dude up here to try to see where the aliens are.
Guide my hand.
So if you are not familiar with XCOM 2, the original XCOM, the way it worked was you would run your characters around in the level, and as soon as you got near an alien, combat would start, and the aliens would get a little turn to sort of move into position, and then you'd have to fight them. In XCOM 2, they added this early stage where you're hidden from the enemies. It's not true in every mission type, but in this one it is. And you can tell from the blue shimmer around the edge of the screen, you can tell that the enemy can't see you. And so I'm just getting into position, moving closer and closer to the enemy. Now, if I step into the wrong place where the enemy can see me, I can still end up having an XCOM 1 style, the combat starts. This particular character, though, Outrider, she has better stealth than everybody else. So actually, if I'm going to discover where the aliens are, I should do it with her. All right, so who are these enemies? So right here we've got a Codex, which is an enemy where every time you shoot them, they clone themselves. And they never get any more health. When they clone themselves, they basically split their health bar between the two. And so basically what they do is they get more dangerous in terms of being able to offensively attack you because there's more of them. And they get more spread out and more difficult to manage. But they get easier to kill. So they're dangerous, but could be worse. Then you've got, I believe, okay, you've got these snake dudes. These replace the thin men from the original XCOM, and they've got the ability to drag your characters up to them and to poison characters. So that's a little scary. But you can see these little red tiles. These tell you where the enemy will see you if you run up to them. So actually, because Outrider has better stealth than other people, she can get closer without getting seen. So I'm getting her closer so that I get a better sense. Oh yeah, so there's one more enemy over here. This enemy can knock one of your characters out and make a clone of them that you have to fight. Usually what I do is, instead of fighting the clone, I'll just fight the guy, because the clone dies as soon as you kill the guy. So it's 2 birds with 1 stone. And you've got, ooh, I don't know if maybe once or twice I've fought 2 of them at the same time. So that's a little scary. But at least I do know where I can and can't go. So I'm going to pop this guy up here.
A long run.
I'm not sure if the enemy is going to move. If they move, I might be putting him in a vulnerable position where they'll see him after they move. I'm genuinely not sure how it works. Scorch here is better at close range, and so I'm going to get him up here where he could probably get to one of these enemies if he needed to. Caprain Jarden says, the snake people are the worst. Yeah, I agree. Because you got all your best laid plans, and then suddenly they decide, nope, you're over here now. Okay, so if I want to shoot somebody, so one thing that I'll often do, like if I've got a heavy character on my team, I will end stealth by, firing a grenade at somebody, doing as much damage as I can while the enemies are still clustered close together. I don't have a heavy, but I do. Let's see here. These are very leveled up characters, so it's actually kind of difficult to remember everything that they're capable of doing. Okay, so remote start lets me detonate something that's already explosive, but that will only hurt me, so I shouldn't do that. Homing mine. Okay, so I can attach a claymore to an enemy, and it doesn't alert them, but it will explode if they take damage. That's interesting. I can also throw a claymore, which will not reveal me, and it will mean that once the enemy starts moving, they'll set it off. So I'm not sure, because I'm not moving Outrider, I think that she might be able to do both of these things right at the outset, though maybe I don't want to waste too much of my offensive capabilities here. So I'm trying to decide, am I more worried about these guys over here, or am I more worried about these guys over here? You know what? I think that because Scorch can reach these folks, I'm going to hit this guy with the homing mine.
A deadly stowaway.
So he's got a sticky grenade on him now. And so now if I shoot him, not only will I damage him with my shot, but he will also blow up, damaging the codex. Is there anything else I can set up before we get started here? What is this? Ooh, this guy I've also armed with proximity mines. So I can set this up so that these guys have a proximity mine that'll hit them too. By the way, I'm pretty impressed at how they set up these bouncing paths that the things that I throw can take. Like, I'll choose a destination, and they'll figure out how to bounce the thing to arrive there, which is like, that's probably some pretty fancy math that I think someone is probably very proud of, figuring out how to do. Real quick. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I just had a quick knock on my door and I needed to make sure that there was nothing wrong, and there is nothing wrong. We can continue. All right, so this guy, he's actually not in the best position here, because if the enemy decides to take up a spot like over here, he's going to be flanked. But whatever. Okay, so these guys, once they move, they're going to explode. These guys, once this guy's shot, he's going to explode. Now, Scorch here is actually really good at moving around and dealing with the enemies wherever they are, so I'm not going to move Scorch right now. Instead, I'm going to kick things off by shooting at the guy that I just mined. There he is. Okay, yeah, I got a 100% chance to hit him. So I don't think I've ever actually used this homing mine ability before, so I unlocked it really recently. So let's see how this goes. So she hits him and explodes him. And she's not revealed because she's got the superior stealth. Now the Codex is going to clone itself, but each of its clones is going to have... Oh, it's not... Oh, is it not going to clone itself? Ooh, it didn't clone itself. I wonder if because Outrider didn't reveal herself because her stealth is still active, I wonder if everybody else is out of range, so the Codex didn't see anyone. Oh, that's interesting. Because, yeah, I think the Codex is out of range of this guy. But let's... You know, I wonder, can I could just shoot the Viper. But... Oh, okay, dang, I can't pull the Viper to me. I was gonna say, it would be nice to do some, like, turnabout as fair play and pull the Viper to me, but I can't do that. So, I'm just gonna shoot this Viper. Kill it, but that will alert his friend, and his friend is gonna move. A little more than that. Oh, when he moves, he doesn't set off proximity mines? I didn't know that was a thing about that guy. Wow, okay, great. Oh, that's right, I forgot. The stealth in this mission works a little differently because this is one of the final missions. You can actually spend some of your resources you've accumulated over the course of the entire game, giving yourself advantages. And I think one of the advantages you can get in this mission, it's been weeks since I set this up, and so I forgot. I think all my characters have individual stealth. So that means that this guy that I am right now, he still hasn't been revealed. Okay, so this guy did not take the damage I expected him to. Oh, wait, no. Oh, wait, no, the explosion did happen. Oh, it just... Okay, the explosion did happen. He did get hurt. It just looked like he didn't at the time. I think that the effects didn't go off the way I expected them to. Okay, whatever. Anyway, so I think I've got an opportunity to take out this, this Codex without it ever cloning. That would be ideal, except I don't know if there's more enemies over here that I might trigger by getting that close. But I'm going to try it anyway. So this is my melee attack. I'm going to use it on the Codex. Oh, he spotted me. But that's okay. I don't care. There we go. Got the Codex. It never got to clone. And I got some focus, which is something I use to fuel my other abilities. And now I get to move one more time because that's a thing this kind of character can do. So he gets a bonus move after he attacks. So now this guy is probably going to clone one of my people. Oh. Oh, interesting. No, he just did a normal attack. That's unusual. And my character reflected it because that's an ability he has. It's funny. Like I said, it's been, you know, weeks since I actually set this mission up. And so I'd forgotten a lot of the things that I'd set up for these characters. All right, well, Mox is going to... Yeah, I might as well just shoot the guy like a normal person. I mean, I kind of want to... Let's get down there and punch him in the face. Just because it'll be convenient to be down there next to my friends. So, yeah, so Mox is all about, like, closing distance, be able to move around the map really easily. Whereas Outrider's all about stealth, and Scorch is about, like, melee attacks and stuff. This guy, he got so destroyed, he couldn't even figure out how to explode. He's dead, but he's just, like, stalled there like a weirdo. All right, so... Okay, so Mox can move once more. I think I'm going to try to keep these characters together. So I'm going to move Mox over here, and then let's just overwatch the other two so they can all be moving at the same rate. Okay. So we're just going to ignore that guy who's just standing there like a weirdo. And now that we're not in stealth anymore, now that none of us are in stealth, I'm going to start moving much more cautiously. So this mission does not have a time limit. A lot of missions have time limits. Which means, you know, or turn limits. Like, you have to complete it in a certain number of turns. This one doesn't have that. Which means the best thing for me to do is to take one tiny step at a time with my team.
I am trusting you.
Oh, actually, because she has the superior stealth. She's still in stealth, so she can get close. So, all right. So now we got these two. Again, another one of these guys. Anybody else? I don't see anybody else. So I'm going to move her a touch closer. One thing that's tough about...
That's one of their transmitters. They didn't put a whole lot of effort into disguising the alien tech involved.
The design may be a function of the network itself. The amount of psionic energy filtered through that system is beyond measure.
So, okay, yeah. So one thing that's kind of tough is I don't know at what point... Because we got this one character who's in stealth, who has revealed the location of these characters. It's normally when you're moving around and you're trying to figure out where is safe to move, where isn't. You know that like the fog of war, when the fog of war lifts, like I've got the same view distance as the enemy. So if I can see them, they can see me. Except when you've got one character who's in stealth and the other ones aren't, then this character can see these characters. They can't see me. I don't know how close I can get to these characters before they do see me. And with Outrider not able to act this turn, I'm kind of disinclined to move Mox at all. Not quite yet. So actually, I'm gonna Overwatch again, because if I move Mox at all, I'm gonna have a fight with these guys. Oh, are they gonna? Aha! Well, we're having the fight because I Overwatched, and they walked into my range. But I guess that's better than better than nothing. Aw, you suck.
I will improve at any cost. They're moving to the fight.
So Ranithcourt asks, isn't there some kind of red sight thing on the ground around the enemies? Not in that case. I mean, when the entire team is in stealth, or like this character right here, she is in stealth. So when you are actively in stealth, you get the red sight thing around the enemies that tell you where you can and can't go. But when you're not in stealth, you don't get that. And so, yeah, so that it's kind of a weird little weakness there in the way all this works. So, let's figure out what we can do here. Oh, by the way, so Caprain Jardin says they were not a fan of most of the missions being timed in XCOM 2. I believe that they've actually, I think they might have like a difficulty option that lets you remove or extend those timers. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I started the new game, but I think they did sort of respond to audience feedback on that, because the way that they handled it in XCOM 1, when they did their big expansion pack, they added these resources that would time out. And so they encouraged you to sort of advance as quickly as you could into the map to try to claim them before they went away. And that was really nice because it was an optional thing. It was a thing that you could decide, like as a player, I am going to prioritize getting these things, and I'm going to take on extra risk to do it. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to zoom in here and grab this guy. Haha! And I'm going to punch you in the face. Ooh, I critted. And, I can still do something else? Oh, that's great. Well, I'm just going to shoot you right in the face at point-blank range. And shoot my friend in the leg. But anyway, so that encouraged players to play a little less conservatively, because the problem they were seeing, and this makes sense, is that players were doing what you just saw me do, which is crawl very slowly through the map, making sure they always maximize the amount of actions that they had in the event of revealing an enemy. And it could make the game, it could slow the game way down and make it less fun, even though you're doing what the game is telling you need to do in order to survive. It makes the game less fun to have to move that slowly. And so they were trying to put things out there to like get players out of that shell, get them to take risks and jump into the level. And that worked really well because it was optional. You always felt like it was your fault, when you didn't take enough of a risk or when you suffer for the risk. But in XCOM 2, they just put these explicit turn limits on, which means that you just lose if you don't get the objectives done quickly enough. And a lot of people reacted poorly to that. Because it is always interesting, because it felt like they already had a really good solution in the expansion to XCOM 1. And so it was odd to go to a more explicit approach that is that risks more player frustration. But the thing is, until you actually get the reaction from players, it is difficult to know in advance what's going to work and what's not. So, you know. Anyway, I'm going to run up here and rend this guy. Get rent! Okay, unfortunately, this guy's got a bunch of armor, and I don't really have... Okay, so I'm going to turn on parry. So at the end of my attack, I can either move away from the enemy, or I can turn on parry. And if I turn on parry, when they attack me, they're going to fail. But yeah, so I don't have any of the characters in this group that is good at defeating armor. This character, Outrider, I think can... ignore armor, which is I think what she's going to do here. You can see on his health bar that his 4 yellow pips of armor are going to be ignored by this shot. So I'm going to shoot him, which takes him down. But this character always has a second life. The robot suit keeps going after you kill the alien inside. So I'm hoping he attacks Scorch, because Scorch can defend himself. Oh, and actually Scorch automatically attacks anyone who comes after him in melee. And now he's parrying that attack. So, well done, everyone. Okay, so I guess let's bring Mox up. Just so that I'm closer to my friends. And I think Mox can probably take this guy out. Okay, so let's not, because we just ran Mox out of movement points or whatever, action points, let's just move these characters around a little bit.
Cover me, I'm reloading.
And not get them too far away from each other. Oh, hey, so Zedric showed up and says, I hate timed missions in pretty much everything. Yeah, like, a lot of the time when I'm playing a video game, I'm specifically doing it, you know, to kind of relax. And so if you put like what feels like an artificial time limit on something, especially one where you can get deep into the level thinking you're doing well, and then actually the time limit, just, you do not have enough time. In fact, I think I might have done that to myself in the original Modern Warfare. There is a mission, like near the very end, where there's a timer before like a nuke is launched or something like that. And you're trying to break in and get there. And I was playing on the hardest difficulty level for the first time for some reason. I don't know why I decided that was a good idea. But I was playing on the hardest difficulty level, and I had a checkpoint recorded near the end of that level where I did not have enough time to beat it. There was like literally no chance that I could beat it with the time that I left, and I had to restart the mission in order to do it. And so you can get that way in XCOM too as well. It's like you've gotten really deep into a mission, and then you realize it's literally impossible for me to complete the objective with the turns I have left. I thought I was doing okay, and I'm not, and now I'm screwed. And you're just sitting there staring at the game, and yeah, that's definitely one of the downsides that you can face. Okay, so this guy needs to reload too. Oh, by the way, Stevo143 showed up. I was like, yes, XCOM. Yes, Stevo, I did remember. I'm glad you were able to show up for this, because I did remember that was your reaction when I mentioned that I might come and play XCOM a little bit later. You seemed enthusiastic, so I was actually hoping you would show up for this.
I go where you tell me.
Okay, so as usual, I am slowly crawling through the level. So usually, like, you want to move one character up to sort of say, okay, this is as far as I'm going.
My life is in your hands.
And then you don't move anybody else any closer to the enemy than that, so that no one else is going to trigger the... Like, if I move Scorch up here, Scorch could trigger the enemy after these two have already moved and they've got less flexibility. So I want to move Scorch behind Outrider so that we don't trigger the enemy. And then anybody who's got movement left, we overwatch them.
Sounds like aliens.
And if you don't know what I'm talking about, overwatch means if an enemy comes within my range, I will shoot at them, unless I'm in stealth. So, okay, so Outrider... Okay, so this is my destination right here. There's going to be some kind of enemy unit in here. I don't know who it is. Somebody's here. So let's move Outrider up. And let's move Mox up. Outrider and Mox. Oh, wait, we've got a roof. Oh, I had been thinking about using the roof. Interesting. Well, I might be able to drop somebody down there, but let's move, because Scorch is my most mobile one. Whenever I'm stacking up on a door, my most mobile character, who could have an easy time advancing on the enemy, attacking them in melee, getting into cover somewhere else, I stand them right in front of the door, whereas the people who are best at sort of shooting from cover, I keep them by the sides of the door so they don't have to move when the door opens.
I will sense any
Aliens live
disturbance.
nearby.
Steve-O says, I'll spend ages customizing a character in XCOM only to have them killed on the next mission. Yeah, that's how you doom somebody. It's almost like, a character in a TV show, like a brutal, dramatic TV show, who suddenly gets a bunch of character development when they hadn't had any before. You're like, oh, that character's about to die. Steve-O asked if I think they'll make an XCOM 3. They certainly hint that there's an open end at the end of XCOM 2, which, maybe we'll get there today. And so it's possible. I think that the team that built this, is probably the team behind Midnight Suns, maybe? So I don't think they're making XCOM 3 immediately, but, XCOM and XCOM 2 are so beloved. I would be surprised if they didn't make an XCOM 3. I just think they're taking their time and, you can get a lot more excitement built up around a game if you're not just following right on the heels of the previous game, but you give people time to sort of become nostalgic about the game. I think that's often actually a better move rather than just following right on its heels. Like Left 4 Dead 2, for instance, coming out 1 year after Left 4 Dead 1, and a lot of people were like, I still like Left 4 Dead 1. What are you people doing? All right, well, let's just open this door and see what happens. Not a lot. Okay. It would be really funny if there's no enemies in here, but I don't think that's likely to be the case. Well, can we send Mox up here to, peek into the room from above?
Yes, Commander.
Anybody? Is there literally nobody here? Have I killed all the enemies, and this is just... I'm just slowly creeping up on a button I need to push?
Target in range. Move to hack the command console.
Okay, that's odd if that's really what's happening. Let's move Outrider.
That's a long run.
Yeah, I'm gonna be cautious just in case.
The enemy approaches.
Okay, yeah, no, I forgot. I am actually seeing those yellow ripples, which means the enemy is here. They're just not on the side of the building that I decided to go to. So I guess, what happens if I hit the button and I haven't fought the enemies yet? Let's hack this thing. I didn't bring any expert hackers here, so I'm not going to accomplish anything super cool. But I should mention, the hacking mechanic in XCOM 2 is my least favorite thing in the world. But luckily, all the story essential hacks have very limited bad consequences. You notice that these two possible consequences here, they both say on fail, no effect. That means nothing bad can happen because of this hack. Optional hacks often have bad consequences, and they're just random die rolls, and they frustrate the heck out of me because, yeah, it just feels like I should never do it because it's so likely that something bad's going to happen. So is that it? Have I won?
Status confirmed. We have control of the network.
Didn't have to
now.
fight everybody.
Signal is going out.
They move.
Or did I? Nope, I didn't. Rating, flawless. Soldiers wounded, 0. Nicely done. But now what? So we just accomplished something, I guess.
Firebrand has cleared the perimeter, sir, meeting limited resistance.
Well done, Doctor.
Yes, it would appear the feedback pulse is having the intended effect.
Shen, status. Did it work?
Advent assures us this breakthrough will be available to all citizens immediately. We go live to the speaker for more.
Fellow citizens,
For 20 years, we have put our trust in Advent, in the Elders, because we believed a better future is possible for all. Today, that trust, that belief, has been rewarded. Advent peacekeeping forces are traveling across the world, carrying the greatest gift from the Elders. A revolutionary gene therapy, yes, but so much more. This is an end to disease, to decay, to pain. The
So,
beginnings of a new tomorrow, available to all of us.
so XCOM is showing the world, like, what the aliens are really doing to people on that big screen. So he's saying the alien propaganda, not realizing that he's broadcasting the truth about what they've been doing to humans.
Not a single casualty reported, Commander. I hope all of our deployments go this well.
Yeah, I think that did go pretty well. I'm pretty happy with how that went. So that is the first part of the ending of XCOM 2, War of the Chosen. I think I'm actually going to cut the episode here, and let's do a second episode with the actual final mission in it. So, yeah, so Ranethcord, by the way, I missed this in the chat. He says the whole enemy squad discovery part of XCOM was really unfun for me. I like this. Like, this is the future, and none of them have a radio to tell their allies that they're being attacked? Well, so I definitely didn't necessarily want all of the enemies to come running at me immediately when I discovered them. Though, actually, come to think of it, it's weird. I could imagine this going a couple of different ways. Like, if you made it so that as soon as you discovered one set of enemies, all of them would come running at you, I guess if it worked that way, then it's possible that at least you could sort of like hole up and defend yourself against the onslaught rather than having to sort of move forward to find the next group and the next group and the next group. Like, you could play defensively, and that might work. I imagine that could be kind of boring, though. Like, basically, you'd feel like, oh yeah, I get to explore this level until I encounter a single enemy, and then I just hole up wherever I am and fight them all off. So I can tell why they wanted you to be able to discover the enemies piecemeal and sort of deal with them, and balance is really different too if you expect to only deal with them a couple at a time. But yeah, I do wish there was some way that I could at least, I don't know, like, have there be like a little bit of a delay before an enemy joined the attack or something. Like, I'm not sure exactly what I'm asking for. So like, I like the fact that I only have to deal with the enemies a few at a time. That's a good thing. But if there was some way for me to be able to tell, basically there's just this sudden switch from, oh, I've got a normal amount of enemies that I know how to deal with, and then I move one tile to the right, and then suddenly an entire other squad is brought in. Which could include something like a giant sectopod or something like that. Like, if there was some way for me to, like, stay in stealth, like maybe if stealth wasn't a state that my character was in, but rather unawareness was a state that an enemy was in, then when I revealed the enemy, you could do something like, put a timer on them and say, okay, they are going to notice me next turn. They're not going to notice me right this second, but they're going to notice me in one turn or in two turns or something like that, and be like, and give me a chance to like pull back and prepare for them rather than they immediately just come in and join the fight. Now, they don't immediately get to attack, but they are immediately like a source of concern. Yeah, I think something like that might make it work better for me. And that means like I could say, like, if you attack the enemy, they immediately join the fight. But if all you did was move into range, having there be some sort of grace period where they don't attack you might be kind of the best of both worlds. So if I were designing XCOM, maybe that's what I would do. But, whatever. That's not how it works. So Zedric says, how much of a name does adding a name to State of Decay 2 entail? I'm not sure what you're asking. I think you might have typoed something, so I'm not sure what your question is. If you're asking how much of a hassle it is to get a name added to State of Decay 2, it's one of the easiest things that I can do. I just don't want to do it all the time for no reason. So that's why it's a channel point reward on my Twitch channel. Yeah, so Ranithcord says, I would imagine that the whole scaling and balance of the game would have to be adjusted, but the slow walk forward to play optimally, it feels silly to me. Yeah, that is one of those things where it's like, you know, when you're making a video game, you start with a fantasy that you think that the player has that you want to fulfill. You know, like, they want to play this kind of experience where you're a tactical team fighting against an overwhelming threat. There's a way that they imagine that feeling emotionally, and there's sort of like a dynamic they've got in their head, and they want to experience that. And so you're trying to, when you're making a game, you're trying to come up with a set of rules and behaviors for the game that create that emotional experience for the player. And so, but then once you actually get like into the ground level, like you're actually building this thing and you're practically solving problems on the ground, it's easy to lose sight of that fantasy and just solve problems like this game is its own thing, and I'm just trying to solve the problems locally inside the game. And if you lose sight of that fantasy, you can easily get into a zone where you're coming up with solutions that technically work with the rules of the game, but that do a bad job of representing the fantasy that players have. And so yeah, so like if the player feels like they're mostly thinking about the abstract rules of the game and not this, like, what am I trying to say? Like, when a player plays a tactical game, you know, they want to be thinking of the same kinds of things that a real person in that actual tactical situation would have to think about, right? Like, that's because that's the fantasy, is to be this tactical genius who's like, you know, executing these missions with perfect precision and all this stuff. Like, that's a big part of what the fantasy is. And so you want to be thinking about stuff as a player that you would be thinking about if you were doing the real thing. Now, obviously, as a, you know, since you're playing a video game, it's not as serious as the real thing, and there's a lot of complexity stripped out of it. It's not really what the experience would be like, but you want, you know, on a course level, you want your decisions to be roughly in line with the decisions that somebody would make in the real world, or at least in the fantastical world that you're imagining. And so when you introduce elements to a game where you stop thinking like the person who really would be there on the ground, and you start thinking like someone playing a board game, you start thinking of someone who's like, okay, because of the way this game works, I have to play this way. And it's significantly different from the way you would actually play it out if you were in the real world. That disconnect starts to make the game feel a little arbitrary and cheap, and it can sort of break the fantasy that you're having. And so that's something that I have to think about a lot. You know, like in State of Decay, you know, people come to that game because they want to think like a zombie apocalypse survivor. They want to have the same kinds of concerns. Where am I getting food? How am I getting power? But also, you know, how do I fight? How do I ensure that I can defend myself against zombies? You want to be thinking like the way you imagine a real zombie apocalypse survivor would be thinking. Now, obviously, we're not going to make an 100% accurate simulation of living in the zombie apocalypse. That would be a mind-numbingly boring, overcomplicated, and too difficult game that no one actually wants to play. So we simplify it down, but we try, like, it's almost like, you know, when you, like, reduce the resolution of an image, you can still see the shape of the same thing, it's just bigger pixels. That's kind of what we try to do. Like, when we're trying to use game mechanics to fulfill the fantasy that a player has, we're trying to, we don't want to just create a completely different picture that bears no resemblance to the fantasy that they had. We're just trying to create a coarser picture, a picture that's got bigger pixels, but it's still the same shape, and they can still see the outline of the fantasy in the choices that they're making. And so, yeah, so in State of Decay, we try to design the game so that the choices you're making feel like the choices that you would make in the real world if you were in that situation. And the places where I think we fall down the most are the places where your choices are determined by arbitrary game conceits rather than things that feel like they really are in line with the fantasy. Anyway, I still don't understand what you're asking, Zedric. I'm so sorry. So anyway, that was probably way too much of a digression, and also this triumphant music playing in the background probably makes this seem really, really strange. So let's wrap up this episode, and then we'll start a new one right at its heels to try to go through the final mission, the actual final mission of XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. So you can subscribe to my channel if you liked this, and you can click on this video right here if you want to go see that video, which I'm going to go make in a second.